Kayla Eason is an MFA candidate in fiction at SFSU. She also writes poetry, and prior to graduate school, she worked as a visual arts journalist. One time, she won $100 for a short story published in Redlands Review. So that was pretty cool. Let's all
Hi everyone.
Hi.
Hello.
That was pretty cool. I wanted some money. Alright. So I have an excerpt from a longer short story. It kind of is in the middle of the story, so I'm going to give you a little bit of an idea of where we're at. The main character, his name is Sam. He's 9 years old. He's currently lost in the Alaskan wilderness. He was abandoned by his brothers. The older brother said he would be right back for him, and he has not returned. It's been hours, and he's beginning to experience symptoms of hypothermia. And it's titled Landscapes. Sam stared at his painful feet, apart from his body. The snow deadened to purple as the sun set. His ankles too were purplish, and brutally hard to the touch. Where was Ray? Would he come back? Sam sucked in a breath and spoke aloud. Brothers? And only a crisp and utter nothing returned. He tried to stand, but his limbs felt like mechanical parts. He pushed his tongue so hard against his bottom front teeth, he thought the teeth would pop from his mouth, and he began to crawl back towards the glacier path. If he could reach the glacier, he'd find someone to help him. The snow no longer hurt his hands. After several minutes, his blood began to flow, and he could stand, but his feet were sore, just chunks of flesh without purpose. He walked slowly, one foot in front of the other, ducking down and up like a wave, again for any momentum. Sam hoped for the path to appear behind one dark tree after another. He looked down at his sneakers, now frosted, but last summer had been dusted and hot, ran around everywhere. He and his brothers, Ray and Cy, had run around all over together. He and his brothers had run like birds, just about taking off, feet skidding across the earth, breath immeasurable in and out of their bodies, propelling them onto the heels of the other. The earth was dirt road after dirt road, winding off to nowhere, some lined by oaks, throwing shade into the wind, and they ran off into the fields, insects snapping in the heat, the tall grass bending with a whipping rhythm as they ran through, and Sam could smell the heat, smell it over the coldness. And Kansas came to him. The brothers visited Dad's family in Kansas last summer. Sam remembers the sea of corn, the slow-motion flocks of fireflies, and the tingling slap from Grandmother when he put his elbows on the dinner table. But what Grandmother offered otherwise was sunlight, and Sam had never been in a sun like that, of the high flaxen one which beat upon that muggy middle of nowhere. Dad's childhood home was an old narrow farmhouse with a screened-in porch where ladybugs amassed in quivering mounds. There was a steep wooden staircase that Sam skid down on accident, left bruises on his shins. He was running up the stairs to tag his brother's side. Both boys with open mouths, tongue pressed in concentration against their bottom row of teeth, they'd soar through the rooms, slipping on floorboards, scaring great-grandmother and their crippled Aunt Eleanor. Grandmother shooed them outdoors, and the dew, the yellow heaven of river plains, and the wideness stirred them into sprints. Grandmother lived in El Dorado, Kansas, with Dad's sister Eleanor and great-grandmother. Grandfather had died long ago. Grandmother thanked God he was dead. She thanked God a man who whipped kids with ironing cords was dead. When the boys were in Kansas, Sam slept on his aunt's bedroom floor. She had suffered a bad ear infection when she was a child and lost all balance in her body. At night, Sam listened to her moan. Often she'd roll over and dry heave into a tin can. If she had eaten too much food, her dinner splattered against the tin, and she'd say, "Sorry, Sam. It's just nice not to be so alone." I used to sleep in one room with all my 9 sisters. I miss that, all my sisters breathing around me. Well, I'm sorry about it, Sam. You ever been sick before? Yes, ma'am, Sam said. Aunt Eleanor was obese because she couldn't walk. After the ear infection, she'd walked as far as the backyard only a handful of times. One night, as they were settling into bed, she said, Sam, take good care of your feet. Go on and walk the whole world over, and remember your poor old aunt. But don't feel too sorry for me, you hear? You don't know what it's like to see the sky for the first time every time you see it now, do you? I've been outside not too much, but each time it's like seeing diamonds for the first time. Can you imagine that? Diamonds making up the whole arc of colored air. Yes, ma'am, Sam said. You're a good boy, Samuel. She fell to sleep, and Sam sprawled out, no blanket, the heat painting him. He smiled. It was a still, real blue night, damp-skinned summer where lying in the darkness felt okay. That summer felt okay. He remembered running with his brothers. They were whooping, throwing their shirts to the earth. Sun down, strides of light tingling, tucking an orange sun. They flew into a lake, water the color of roses, mud between their toes, adrift in the sky. Wish we could all stay here forever, together, Cy said. He remembered the clouds of the prairie, Aunt Eleanor heavy in a splintering lawn chair. Cy and Ray had helped her outside. This is number 5, she said, slouched like sandbags were attached to her body. With her head tilted all the way back, she stared open-mouthed at the sky as crickets mined the yard's overgrowth. Grandmother and great-grandmother sat beside her. The boys stood beside them, the clouds, sculptural, churning energy, simmering a summer storm. Each person glistened with sweat. Aunt Eleanor groaned, whether in pain or absolute pleasure, but deep to her core. Strokes of sapphire lightning, frizzy and thin, blowing up the yellow sky, releasing coolness. The rain was iridescent. But in the forest, Sam shivered, and his teeth clacked. The glacier was just beyond the trees. He could feel it. It had always been there. It would always be there. The ice and the night as blue as that lightning. And another memory came to him. When one afternoon during that summer in Kansas, Grandmother told Sam to sit with great-grandmother. She told him to spend time with her. Ray and Cy said great-grandmother smelled dead already, but Sam did what he was told. She was in her wheelchair facing the window in the living room. The window was open, the prairie floated in, blonde light and listless. Slow dust motes glittered in the sunlight which hung like fog in the musty room. A vase of dead sunflowers sat beside great-grandmother. The shriveled petals, mustard color, littered the floor before her feet. She wore dirty pink house slippers. The room smelled of mold and old lace. The maroon wallpaper bubbled and peeled near the thick, dark wood molding. The floorboards creaked when Sam shifted his weight from foot to foot. The living room was in the front of the house, and the window looked out upon the patchy lone road and the bleached expanse of grass, stretching forever toward hulking clouds and hot sky. Sam sat beside her. "Who is this handsome young man?" she asked. Her hand shook as she reached for Sam's. Her hand was cold and faint in his palm, like a porcelain doll's. "It's me, Sam. Remember, great-grandmother?" He slipped his hand away and shoved it in his pocket. Her hand remained outstretched as she smiled. "That's right, my old friend Sam. He and I had a malt every day. Back then I was skinny as they come. I never gained any weight." Grandmother was mending a pair of large women's underwear in the corner. "Mother, that's your great-grandson." "Oh dear me, that's very strange. I'm sorry, young man," great-grandmother said. She moved her hand toward the window and pointed to the road. Her eyes were wet-looking and big. The skin on her face hung heavily, but she smiled widely. "That day is a beautiful one." Sam turned to the window and nodded. He wasn't sure why great-grandmother couldn't remember anything. He kept his chin to his chest. Eyes glanced up and out toward the landscape. He tried not to smell her, afraid he'd be disgusted. He wanted to be good company. She began speaking about the road outside, how it was the quietest road there ever was. She talked about the summer and all the ladybugs quivering on the porch like packs of polished rubies. Then she began to describe a train, and then she was on the train. She turned to Sam, her bulbous eyes slightly crossed. She said, "When is the train arriving? When will I be home, mister? I'll be stopping by my daddy's store. He owns a grocery store. It's a Sunday, is that right?" "Oh, on Sundays the Iceman comes. He brings big old blocks of blue ice. I like to pet the horse, the most beautiful creature, chestnut, big dark eyes. Mister, when will the train get in? When will I see my daddy?" Then, great-grandmother turned back to the window. She smiled great teeth. She gazed out the window as if she really was sitting on that train, moving across the state. Grandmother had been listening from the other side of the room. "Mother, stop it. Stop it now. We're not in Wichita no more. This is your home. Eldorado is your home till the end." Great-grandmother smiled again at Sam, and he saw her neck fat quiver and glossy eyes doubt herself for a moment, darken with fear, and her thin hair spidered out from beneath her curly white wig, and Sam shivered in the sunlight coming through the window. Sam wondered, how did great-grandmother see that living room as a train pushing across the prairie, a train pushing into the distending sky? How did she believe herself in another time, another place? Sam wanted to take her hand again and squeeze it, but he was too shy. He felt thirsty, though he was not. His throat pinched and his chest felt empty, and it needed filling, but with what he didn't know. Later, grandmother told Sam that great-grandmother had been a painter when she was young. She had a precise hand for landscapes. The walls of her home had been covered in every color landscape imaginable. All Kansas countryside, all seasons, all colors, all light. And so in the forest, Sam wondered if he could make it disappear. He wondered if he could change the landscape. There was something enormous about the night that he had never before noticed. The forest, so dense, was also empty. The land could not be traversed across, but he had to somehow travel inward. In that moment, he felt the land in himself too, the land that was beyond his control. And one night, not long before he was in this forest, Dad had been drunk on the floor, and he cried, and he moaned about the times that he caught flying tarantulas, the times he soared into lakes, summer, the color of goldfish, the fleshy reeds, electric cattails in Kansas, and oh God, the air. As it left spring's green wheat and turned dry, "I'd run," Dad said. "I'd run so fast, and when in life will I ever know that feeling again?" Juneau, Alaska is a town landlocked by mountains too slick for roads. The only way to access the town is by airplane or boat. Dad was the same way. Before, Dad with thoughts like the fireflies burning in a float, yellow lights all dim across the eternal husk-rough plain blonde like him and blank too, and so much space unfilled. And now he listened to a stretch of cold earth rimmed with ice. Both Dad and Juneau possessed an expectancy that someone would build a road to them, but knowing that no one was going to. And so, in that darkness, Sam saw the trees disintegrate. The land stretched flatly toward the ocean. He saw the glacier like a diamond, bluish cuts jutting into the ocean, sewing into the earth. It was a light, as if lit from within by thousands of bulbs. Glow in the dark, walked with ease, his feet light, the beaded outer space draped. The air a slow, dark twilight scent, corner of the world scent, middle of nowhere scent, middle of nowhere hour. Day turned night, earth turned sky, and sunlight stretched over his mind, covered the cold landscape, covered the depth of it all, covered his father and his mother and his great-grandmother and aunt and Cy and Ray, covered the bruises like the day bleaching the swirling galaxies of space.
Thank you so much, Kayla. wonderful quality of, I don't know, just like a quality of stillness and contemplation in the space that you created. So, thank you. Gosh, like moving along on our open mic list. Where are the numbers? Okay, cool. So, coming up next, I would like to welcome to the stage Miss Laura Cooley.